And welcome back to another episode of the Choose954 Podcast, episode 111, with local artist and upcoming CreativeZen speaker, Deborah Perlman, here from her home studio gallery in Hollywood, Florida.
Yes.
If you didn't know about Choose954, myself, Evan Snow, and my business partner, Mr. Andrew Martineau, started a social movement to cultivate culture and community here in my native Broward County, in an effort to keep people in the know with all the great things that are going on, to make this a better place to live and not just a better place to vacation because we live here. The point of the podcast is to connect you with interesting people like her that do amazing work in the community. And we actually have quite a bit to tell you here. And coming up, you'll get to hear more at CreativeZen on Friday, June the 13th. But without much further ado, your journey has been quite unique, transitioning from communications back to your roots in sculpture. How did your experiences in the communication field influence your artistic approach and journey to lead you to where you are today?
Right. Well, funny story. When I finished my graduate degree and my master's in sculpture, I was kind of faced with a couple of realities. One was, how am I going to make a living? At the time, I didn't think that I would be able to sustain myself as an artist. And also, I was feeling kind of lonely in the studio. I was feeling very isolated, and I wanted to get out and see more of the world. I wanted to learn how to work with other people, and I wanted to travel and grow as an adult, basically. So I took the first job I could get and started to evolve into more and more responsibility with different jobs and had a wonderful career. It ended up being in communications, and I had just every job I had, I loved. I found that the experience of working with other people, also the travel that I did because I was in the hospitality business, so I was traveling quite a bit all over the world, gave me quite a bit of sense of self and the energy and enthusiasm. So when I was able to afford it and I came back to making art, I used my business experience along with my creative skills. So my business experience is to be able to express myself, writing, and all kinds of wonderful organizational skills that I learned in the corporate arena. And in the corporate arena, I used all of my creative skills.
Nice.
I was designing websites, and I was putting presentations together, designing brochures, newsletters, you name it. So it kind of flip-flopped, and I'm very happy for the experiences that I've had so far.
Everything happens for a reason, and some of the most talented artists are not the best at marketing, but the ones that are best at marketing aren't always the most talented. When you can find that balance of storytelling, of communication, it certainly helps you be effective, and you've certainly done a great job of getting your work out there and exhibiting and having your name and your work be known.
Thanks.
For those that maybe are not familiar with you, let's just take it one step back further. How did you initially get your start even in the arts, and what led you to going to art school?
I was one of those high school artists who did the posters and the scenery for the school play and that sort of thing. And I knew that I loved making art. So I applied to Boston University School for the Arts and earned my BFA degree with a major in sculpture there. And a couple years later, I went to graduate school at Cranbrook Academy of Art in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, which is outside of Detroit, and earned my MFA degree with also a concentration in sculpture. So I had a great background. I was very fortunate to have that education. I don't know why my parents agreed to an art education in those days, but they did. They let me do it, and I'm so grateful.
Everything happens for a reason.
It does.
And now, your work incorporates abstract geometric forms and materials such as wood, metal, and photographs. Could you walk us through your creative process from the initial concept to some of the final pieces that we see here behind us?
Sure. So, of course, the first thing is some kind of concept, some kind of idea comes to mind. I try to stay open to possibility. open to ideas, open to a new way of thinking. And I've always been able to generate more ideas than I can handle in terms of my art, making art. And so from that original idea, the sketchbook comes out, the little leather sketchbook. And I've noticed that it's the ability just to free flow the idea and let it just come out in different ways. It's fascinating to me how it happens only in this little book. I've tried it on a piece of paper, like a piece of copy paper, and it's not the same. This little book is magical. So I, use that, come up with the concept, and then start finalizing a sketch. Now, the sketch usually does not look a lot like the finished piece.
Sure.
And that's the evolution of the work. And so after the sketch, I start to put colors and materials together. I look for significant photographs that might work. And I look for textures. I print everything. My paint is the cartridge in the ink in the printer. I have a great printer, and I use it to print out all the colors. And so there's an infinite variety, and I can put texture in those colors. And so it's a great, for me, it works really, really well. And so I start to put it together every day. I work on it. It changes every day. I accept that. I kind of welcome the mishaps and look for possibilities as it moves on. And then when I think I'm there, not put together yet, but I'm there, I have to make sure within 24 hours that I don't want to change it again. So I make sure, I guarantee myself 24 hours. If I come back the next day and I still love it, I know I'm there. And then comes the interesting building part with adhesives and a lot of measurements and luck to make sure that it comes out the way I want it to.
It is a very interesting process. And now that I'm actually sitting here below and I'm looking up, I actually see some like 3D components that maybe when I was looking at it face on, I didn't even notice. And I could tell that there is a lot of arranging and rearranging and configuring. And this idea of mystery seems central in your work as you invite viewers to explore doorways and ramps and passages. What role does mystery play in your art, and how do you hope people experience that sense of exploration as they view and interact with your work?
Evan, mystery is sort of like a synonym for life to me. I've always been one to ask questions, to explore the unknown, to find the mystery. And so that really gets into my work almost as a mirror. It's like a miracle. It just happens. And I stand back and say, it's somewhere between the real and the imagined. And that space of gray, not the black and white in life, but that gray area is where I'm most comfortable. I always want to be looking for questions and looking for the mystery. That seems to be a fertile place. And in terms of what I want people to do, I want them to ask questions. Like I do. I pose questions like, what is it? Where is it? What do I see and what do I feel? And that ultimate question, do I find myself in it or not? And that's the connection that people make to the work.
And art can be many different things to many different people. Art could be history, art could be storytelling, art could be design, art could be investment. And there is like a retrospective, inflective quality and component of seeing these characters that, right, who are they? Is that me? Like, how can I associate with these people? And they're dark in color, but it's not necessarily dark as in like despair.
No.
Obviously up to the viewer and up to interpretation.
Right, exactly.
But it certainly seems inspiration from diverse sources, including African sculpture, Constructivism, and the works of artists like Louise Nevelson and Frank Stella. How do you bring these influences together while maintaining your own unique artistic voice and point of view?
Right. So the African sculpture impressed me from the day I was the first day in college. And I love the geometric aspect. So that really started to influence me in terms of using geometric shapes and forms. And the work of Louise Nevelson, Frank Stella, Joseph Cornell with his shadow boxes, when I saw that low relief kind of quality, I knew that I was drawn to 3 dimensions. And so that I bring into the work as well. The illogical perspective of Giorgio de Chirico and also M.C. Escher just appeals to me. So I'm bringing in those unknowns in different ways. So the abstract from the sculptures, the African sculptures, the art movements of Constructivism, geometric abstraction, and Cubism have had a big influence in terms of my forms and spaces. And so all of that put together brings me to an abstract, geometric, low relief piece.
I'm familiar with many of the names you mentioned, but I don't see so many artists working in these mediums today. Obviously, there's a lot of thought, there's a lot of practice, there's a lot of measurements and a lot of work that goes into it.
Right.
Aside from Louise Nevelson and M.C. Escher, who are some of your other artistic inspirations that have influenced you as an artist?
Oh, wow. Well, I would say Picasso for sure. I would say Jacques Lipschitz. You put me on the spot here. But
those are good ones.
Hundreds of them that have. And I'll tell you what, I have an idea folder. And in that folder, in my computer, I have an ideas folder. Every time I see the work of another artist that something strikes me, triggers me, I put it in the folder. And so when I'm starting work or I get stuck on something, I open the folder in my computer.
Beautiful.
And look at the work of other artists. So it's a constant kind of reorientation, inspiration. Going to exhibits and that sort of thing helps me quite a bit as well.
We're going to suggest that other artists take that inspiration and apply it. That is a great idea because, you see something, maybe you bookmark it, maybe you send it to yourself as an email, and then, it gets lost in 80,000 emails. So that idea folder, inspiration folder, however you want to consider it, that's, really a brilliant idea. With regards to your current work and your most recent exhibitions, you've featured a series of solo shows, and what were some of the key moments or reactions that stood out during these exhibitions with your current body of work?
I think for me, the most exciting thing is seeing other people see my work and observing them, talking to them. And I've learned a good lesson recently. I always used to think that putting an explanation next to the piece was a good idea. And at a recent CreativeZen, I asked that question to other artists. And their response was such that I realized that telling the story may disorient or change what that person is really connecting to.
Right.
And I want to let them just connect with no story. If they want the story, I can always tell it. And it's written in my website and everywhere. Everything has a story behind it. But I like the idea of just having them look at it and finding themselves in it. I recently was at one of these exhibits and a gentleman said to me, "I feel fear in your work." And I went, wow. And yet I realized what he was saying. He really got it because there is fear in some of these unknown spaces. It's not sometimes scary to be in a place where you're not oriented and you don't know where you're going and that sort of thing. And I think that he felt that sense of fear. And I was just fascinated by that and accepted it and really used it in a lot of ways.
Amazing.
So.
Was that the last CreativeZen you were referring to?
Yes. I asked the question, actually, about well, don't you think we should put the story next to each piece? Why don't exhibits do that? And one of the artists who was on the panel said, I like to just let people take whatever they're going to take from it. And I said, you know what? That is so smart. That is exactly what I need to be doing.
And interestingly, that artist, if I believe it was Christian
Yes.
Fennick, was former architect that also works in very like geometric
Yes.
shapes and patterns and abstract, that it really can be interpreted many different ways by many different people. And if you're not familiar with what CreativeZen is, which Deborah will be our next speaker, it's a monthly breakfast lecture series and mini TED Talk that we've been hosting for free for our community that we just celebrated 7 years of last month, where I received my initial aha moment that led me down this path of arts, culture, and creativity, which is why I continue to host it, bringing in local people to share their thought-provoking, inspiring story, because we all have a story to tell. But last month was the first time that we did the panel, and Deborah's been a frequent flyer, supporter, attendee of CreativeZen, which we appreciate. So last month, doing this panel around the Mirrored Realities exhibit, and the talk is held at the Cotilla Gallery inside the Alvin Sherman Library on the campus of NSU, which is now currently exhibiting Mirrored Realities, curated by Sergio Gomez, who was also on the panel. It was really insightful for me, and it was insightful for everybody. I felt like there was like a wave of of insight, of new energy that, you know, we've been around art for a long time,
right?
Seen so much art. And, you know, at some point in time, I mean, there's a thing called art fatigue. That's generally when you go to Miami Art Basel and you see 10,000 pieces. Right. But it's like, it was that question, and I think another one or two questions and topics were very insightful, because I kind of maybe desensitized a little bit, or had been desensitized, because I've seen so much art that like it really is only the art now that pains the artist to make that really moves me, versus the pretty picture of a flower that I've seen 100,000 times, or, you know, a nice landscape. But it really actually prompted me to look at that exhibition with fresh eyes and look at the artists and their artwork in a new perspective, especially with the theme being the mirrored realities, being during Mental Health Awareness Month, being some of the work was a little bit more personal, not necessarily darker, but everybody struggles. Everybody has a story to tell. Right. Everybody's going through the same journey in life. And thankfully, you and artists and creatives are able to express that through your work, through your medium, whatever it may be. And it's interesting how there's a million artists, however many million artists there are, but they're really not, like, nobody's doing the same thing that you're doing.
Right.
And it's very unique.
And we all are. Everyone's unique. And I say that all the time. And that event that I went to, at the very end, we were given a task. And the task was to find one piece in the exhibit that you feel means something to you, or you connect to it, and take a picture of it, put it on your social media, and talk about what you feel about that other person's piece, which I did. I did it for Christian because I felt that he and I have an affinity in terms of the architectural, and I always connect to his work. So it was an opportunity for me to use my communication skills and write about this piece. So it was great.
That was great. And that's why, I mean, you know, been doing it for 7 years. I've been attending longer from when I initially attended in 2016. And that's why I continue to host it. You know, even though sometimes we don't get hundreds of people or dozens of people, we get a nice crowd, you know, maybe 24 people or so. But you never know who's going to be sitting there, what insight they're going to get, how that's going to change the impact of their life, their community, their work, the art world, or whatever the case may be, which is why we continue to host this event for free every second Friday morning of the month, and bringing people like yourself to share your story. So June the 13th, the doors open at 8:30. The talk starts at 9 a.m. We're out of there by 10. You can find it online, CreativeZen Talks on Choose954. You register on Eventbrite, you get the free parking link. Breakfast bites, coffee, community, free guided meditation.
It's great.
It's a nice way to start your morning, one Friday morning a month.
Very much so.
So if they would like to find out more about you and your work, where can they find you on social media and the interwebs?
My website is artbydperlman.com. And I'm on Instagram with Deborah W. Perlman Art. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And lastly, as an artist who's worked in multiple mediums and experienced both success and challenges, what advice would you give to aspiring artists looking to forge their own paths in the creative world today?
Oh, a couple of things come to mind. First of all, be yourself. Be true to who you really are. Connect to that spirit and keep that spirit strong in whatever way you feel you can. Also, don't compare yourself to other artists. I think that's a big one, and that can really get one down if you start doing that. That's kind of like that wishful thinking, which gets you nowhere. And I would say also practice patience, practice focus and resilience, and learn from the challenges that you face in your life. Learn so that you can grow and you can be a better person and be more of who you are. I just recently heard this great expression that says, miracles happen at the intersection of grace and willingness. And I just love that, especially as an artist. Wow. You know, that's what it takes. It takes willingness. It takes focus. It takes patience. It takes work. It does take work. And yet, we all are unique and we all have a story to tell. So that would be my advice. Grace and willingness.
Miracles happen at the intersection of grace and willingness. And it really does make a lot of sense. And if you are grounded, humble, grateful, graceful, and you have the willingness, you're that much more likely versus if you take the alternative path. And a lot of artists look at themselves and their career and their practice, unfortunately, as like, woe is me, it's so hard, no one's buying my work. And yes, that's certainly a valid perspective and might very well be true. And unfortunately, to extrapolate further, with all the cuts to the NEA and NEH and all these things, you know, yes, we are living in unprecedented times. And I was just at this Yale Innovation Summit in New Haven, and the Liz Shapiro, the director of art for the state, was asked this question, like, you know, what are we going to do? It's so bleak. It's so, you know, there's no hope. Well, she reminded us that we got through the Civil War. We got through COVID. We got through the Great Depression. We've gotten through without all the resources that we have now. We got through 9/11. We got through all these things. So the takeaway was, it's really how you choose to view this situation. And if you're graceful and if you have the willingness, then you're that much more likely to navigate the tough times. And that's why, while I'm not a certified yoga teacher or mindfulness practitioner, mindfulness and yoga and meditation for me has certainly helped me change the way that I view and interact with the world, with my work, with the community. Because yeah, it's not easy for anybody. Even if you're an independently wealthy person born into a lifestyle of riches, you know, that could still be very challenging, and you still have to make good use of your time and still find things to do. So I think that was a brilliant quote, and all the more reason for people to come hear your story. And last thing we generally like to ask on the Choose954 podcast is, why do you choose the 954 here in beautiful Hollywood, Florida?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, there is a lot going on in this community, and more I see artists getting together, helping each other. There is an awareness in terms of studio space, thanks to you and what you have created. And I think that it's a great place to be an artist. And we are in between two great counties that complement us, and we work together with those counties as well. So South Florida is rich.
Amen. And if you're not familiar somehow, we have Zero Empty Spaces, which we actually have our next grand opening celebration the evening of June the 13th, the second Friday morning of the month, after her talk at Dakota, the Design Center of the Americas, which
it's gorgeous.
It's
gorgeous.
It's very interesting. This 800,000 square foot, mega center that's been there for 40 years, had seen it was the place to be for design back in the 80s and 90s, and then things changed with the internet and their ownership, and used to have to only be able to go in with an interior designer, used to have to pay a fee, used to have to pay for parking. But thankfully now the new ownership group with Lincoln, they've released that. They they installed a new campaign called Everything by Design, and they brought in Zero Empty Spaces into the heart of the center of the space at Atrium B, where we have 25 artist studios, one available if you know an artist looking. And, it's just really great that we have this space where there's so much design, so much beauty, so much luxury, that now we can pair artists. And we've already had success stories already where interior designer walked through, said, yeah, that piece in the window, that's exactly what my client wants. And it's possible.
What an opportunity.
Yeah.
It's great.
So June the 13th, it's going to be 5 to 7 p.m. Ribbon cutting is going to be at 6 p.m. You get to meet a lot of local artists, tap into the local creative community. We had a great potluck there.
We did.
Recently with probably the biggest.
I think so.
Attendance.
The biggest one.
Almost, I think, 45 people. So we're glad to continue doing this work. Glad to continue supporting local artists. Glad to continue growing the Zero Empty Spaces movement that now takes up most of my time. And glad to continue supporting creatives like yourself, because you should be able to be an artist in a place like Broward County. And I guess just the last thing is, if somebody likes your work, they like your story, they want to engage with you, are you available for classes, commissions, exhibitions, all the above?
All the above. Definitely.
Okay.
Yes, I've been teaching workshops on collage. I am definitely available for commissions, and my work is for sale. So take a look.
And some things coming up.
Yes.
Next year, this year.
End of this year as well. I can't talk about it yet, but
okay.
Announcement soon.
Stay tuned for more.
Yes.
And we'll be glad to continue supporting and sharing through our social media channels. You've been a great supporter of ours, which we appreciate. And we certainly hope you'll do the same and join us for CreativeZen. If you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at evansnow13, at Choose954, evan at Choose954.com. Would love to hear why you choose the 954. And always looking for more great stories to tell. Always looking for more speakers for CreativeZen. We encourage people to attend first so they can get a feel for the event and how it goes. But we have mostly all of them recorded and archived on our YouTube page, as well as great social clips. So, we're doing the best with what we got. Things are changing. Progress is being made. And we certainly appreciate you taking the time and welcoming us into your beautiful home studio here today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.